Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morren. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
Welcome to NHL Wraparound, Thanksgiving Eve 2025. Vic Morren, Neil Smith, and really looking forward to our special guest today with the New York Islanders having come off that 6-1 road trip. They split at home over the weekend, but Cal Clutterbuck is going to give us some pretty good insight on what he sees the strengths and areas of improvement for the Isles.
And there you have it. The New York Islanders, the reason I'm wearing this hat is in honor of Cal Clutterbuck. 17 years in the National Hockey League. Amazing, really.
Before we get to that interview, 3 things that you need to pay attention to. The Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday returned from their 7-game road trip. And Neil, you often talk about teams in that first game coming home so often. The Oilers have actually been outliers, whether it's goal differential, just anything you can think of. The Oilers have kind of defied odds. But last night, it fit right into that first game home doldrum with an 8-3 loss to Dallas. And this one, the score was better than the 9-1 loss that they had to Colorado on November 8th. But the bouquet stunk just the same.
Yeah, and you got to wonder what Oiler fans and season ticket holders and sponsors and suite holders and that, what they're thinking when they're at these games and you get completely annihilated right in your own building. As you said, 9-1 by Colorado. Well, that made everybody think, God, how good is Colorado at that point in the season? Yeah. And then 8-3 by Dallas. And we all know, guess what? We might have given an edge to Edmonton last night because Mikko Rantanen was sitting out his suspension. Yep. And they still come in and kill you 8-3. And I don't know where 97 and 29 were hiding last night, but they sure weren't very evident.
That was 4-0 in the first period and could have been 5 if not for a goal by Nathan Bastian that was waved off due to a high stick. Stu Skinner pulled after the first period, allowed 4 on 8 shots. Calvin Pickard gave up the other 4. 13 players on Dallas made the score sheet, 7 with double digits in points, including Captain Jamie Benn, who scored his first goal of the season and the 400th of his career.
And that was the first goal of the game in the first period, which sort of set the tone for Dallas and the way they just annihilated the Edmonton Oilers. And I mean, I'd love to see the Edmonton Sun today and see what the headline is on that newspaper, because they're probably killing the Oilers.
Zach Hyman has come back, really hasn't had an impact as of yet. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, his return appearing to be imminent. But truth of the matter is, you look at the last 2 years, and Edmonton got off to those slow starts. It's happening again this year. But I can't think that Stan Bowman is going to be delusional in thinking that this club is going to be able to flip the switch and run through that Western gauntlet the way they've done the last 2 years en route to the final.
No, you can't do this. You know, Vic, last 2 years was not by design. I mean, things happened. They made the coaching change 2 years ago. Let's go back to that. They went from Jay Woodcroft to Chris Knobloch in the middle of the season, or parts thereof. Everything changed. All of a sudden, there was a new voice, there was new everything, and they took off. Last year, slow start. People didn't know why, but then they got it going again because they're so talented. But you can't keep trying to pull that pony like that. That's just not going to work. And people are ready for Edmonton every time they play them. They know about McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard and Nurse and all the rest of them. So they're ready for them. And they're not giving Edmonton a night off ever. So will they make the playoffs? I would say that's a certainty, but I don't think that they can pull that act that they've pulled the last 2 years.
A team that I think we can say safely will not be in the playoffs as we head to item number 2, the Nashville Predators. So general manager Barry Trotz came out completely backing his head coach, Andrew Brunette, and putting all of the onus on the players. So we start to look at this lineup, and I think it was very admirable last season after an encouraging first-round playoff against Vancouver in 2024. Trotz swung for the fences, signed Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea. Stamkos has 2 more years on his contract at $8 million. Marchessault 3 more years at $5.5 million, and Shea 4 more years at $7 million. This club got off to an awful start last year, never recovered. And this time around, they are in last place in the overall league standings. So you would have thought after last year, perhaps Trotz was writing it off. Maybe it's a bad season. Let's go out. Let's be aggressive. Let's improve our club. And instead, the players that they acquired, Eric Haula, Nicholas Hague, and Nick Perbix, these are all role players. And this club has perhaps the worst roster in the National Hockey League. Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, and Ryan O'Reilly notwithstanding.
And also, UC Soros is one of the top goaltenders in the league at times, and not all. He's never down by the bottom. Yeah, this is really a dog's breakfast, this team, because you think about those 3 guys you just mentioned, especially Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi, they're 2 stars in the league. They're fun to watch, those 2 guys. The rest, it's a nightmare. I mean, it's just not a good team, and Barry Trotz is going to have to do something. They can't just sit around and let this team languish. This wasn't a rebuild. This is the thing people got to understand. This is not a rebuild. There's a reason why Chicago and San Jose have been down at the bottom for the last couple of years. It's a rebuild, and they're advertising it as such. In Nashville, they're trying to win the cup, and that's tough to do when you're in 32nd.
All of these players, maybe with the exception of Forsberg, who's 31. You got to remember, Josi is 35, and he just came off IR after missing 12 games. All of these players, generally speaking, are support players right now. And Ryan O'Reilly's season thus far has kind of resembled his play when he wanted to get out of Buffalo a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, and well, I'm sure he can ask his way out of Nashville at this point because of this late part of his career, and there'd be certainly a lot of playoff-bound teams that would love to have him because we know he knows how to play in the playoffs, as was evidenced in 2019 by his histrionics for the St. Louis Blues. But
and winning the Conn Smythe.
And well, of course, that's what I mean, and. He might be fed up, too, with the fact that the team is just not that good, and, he's frustrated.
It's just baffling that Trotz would come out and say it's all on the players when you look at this roster. It's just not good.
It's just not good, and I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to take the pressure off his coach. He's trying to put the focus on the players. But as you said, so if I was in the media in Nashville and you said it's all on the players, I'd say, well, who brought in the players?
Yeah.
The players aren't good enough. So you're saying, Barry, that the players are good enough to be much better than this when we're clearly seeing night after night they're not. So who put this roster together?
Another general manager that has concerns, somewhat of a different sort, your buddy Don Waddell in Columbus, noting that the condensed schedule is leading to an uptick in injuries. On Monday, Zach Werenski and Matthew Olivier both left their loss in Washington, both with upper body injuries. Werenski is hoping to play on Wednesday against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Kirill Marchenko didn't even make the game because he left the morning skate with upper body discomfort. Boone Jenner, Eric Branson already out. The NHL is saying, this according to a report by Darren Dreger on TSN, while injuries are up, the number of man games lost has not increased appreciably. So basically what this suggests is that there's more nagging injuries that are keeping players out now. But my question to you is, are players breaking down or just not having the opportunity to have their bodies properly recover with this condensed schedule? And you got to remember, there was a 12-day break last season with the Four Nations tournament. You have a 19-day break coming up in February for the Olympics. And what happens in 2 years when we're going to have, in all likelihood, another best-on-best tournament, maybe with more clubs, if sanctions are lifted against Russia, and you've got an 84-game schedule?
No, there's no doubt. Look, if there's a reason why the league starts in October and ends middle of April, okay? And if you push more games into that time frame, less rest, more weary, you're going to have more injuries. They can't talk their way out of this. This is the way that it is. And the PA and the league agreed on all this, so they're both liable. It's not as if it's just the league demanding that their slaves play more games in a shorter period of time. The Players Association agreed to do it this way, but it's undeniable that there's going to be more injuries with a condensed schedule. I think Don Waddell's right on the money. It has to happen. It doesn't make common sense for it not to be that way.
They're almost taking a page out of the NFL book, where it used to be a 16-game schedule. Now it's a 17. They're pushing for 18. They've got these idiotic Thursday games where the quality of play sucks because teams don't have proper time to prepare, and they don't even have time to rest up from the physicality of the sport. So it comes down to one word for me: greed.
Well, but isn't that what we're talking about all the time? I mean, look at what with our big talk about gambling. What was that all about? That's about greed. That's about when COVID hit and they were bleeding money during COVID. I'm not talking just NHL. I'm talking everybody. And all of a sudden along comes, the bookies and says, why don't you get in bed with us? We can make you a lot of money. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we've just lost a ton because of COVID. Maybe we can, this is a good way to do it. And by the way, why don't we put some advertising on the helmets and the jerseys too at the same time? There's some more money. Well, you reap what you sow.
Great stuff. And that will wrap up 3 things you need to pay attention to. Now, let's bring in Cal Clutterbuck.
Cal Clutterbuck is a famous New York Islander and played a lot of years there, along with the Minnesota Wild earlier in his career. Cal, thanks for coming on and talking to us today.
My pleasure, guys. Happy to be here.
Cal, I want to talk about your career a little bit because I've told you this before, and I really mean this. So I want to say it publicly. I thought you were done too early. I thought you had at least one more year left in you last year. I always enjoyed the way you played because you were the prototypical guy that, grinded everybody else down while the stars got a rest on the bench. And I just wondered how you feel about it now that you're 2 years out from your playing.
I felt like I probably could have played a little longer. It was more a situation that we were talking off camera. I've got 4 kids. I've got a family. I've been on Long Island. They've been on Long Island their whole lives. my option to continue to play here was not quite there. It was there, but it would have been, probably would have been conflict with Marty, and Marty was, obviously going after his milestone. So I wanted him to go and do that. And I just wasn't, I didn't want to go into training camp on a PTO anywhere. I felt like, after 17 years of playing, people probably have a good idea of what I do. And if they wanted me to be part of the team, I wanted to go. If I was going to go somewhere, I wanted to be on a team, part of a team, have a contract. And those number of teams were limited because I really wanted to stay close enough to home to where I could potentially leave them here and go play out the year and not have to disrupt their lives too much. So that didn't work out. And I was still looking, still skating, staying in shape throughout probably Thanksgiving last year. Just waiting to see, injuries, stuff pop up. There's always something that comes up. And in the meantime, I'd gotten into TV a little bit. I just agreed to do one game, the home opener, as a guest. And they asked me to come back, and then they asked me to kind of go month by month and pick my schedule. And, I got into that. And so it made the decision a little easier. I think the decision in my mind was made in August, to be honest with you. But, it just felt like the right thing to do. And I didn't want to squeeze every last ounce out of myself. I was getting close to the end. And, for me, my 1,000th game was really my, it felt like what would have been my retirement sort of night and day. So I had all my family here, and I had all my friends from Long Island all together in one place. So that really felt like it satisfied my need to go out there and really have a retirement year or day or whatever. So all those things kind of just came together, and I just made a decision not to play.
Well, 1,000 games is a huge thing. 1,000 NHL games. I don't know if you've ever sat back and said to yourself, my God, there's 82 games in a season. It's not hard to do the math to figure out how long a player has to play and stay healthy to be able to reach that milestone. Yeah, the reason you've already answered my next thing, which was Brendan Smith the other day, who I like as a player very much, hard-nosed guy, sticks up for his teammates, just the same as you, signed on a two-way with Columbus. And I wondered, was there anybody that, not that you should do that, I don't think you should, but was there anybody that approached you with stuff like that?
Yeah, there was a couple teams that approached me with, no, I didn't get a two-way. I might've got a two-way, but, Pat Morris, my agent, knows that would have been a no. Yeah. So I don't even know if he might not even have presented them to me, but not that I heard of. It was a lot of situations like, lingering contract negotiation on a team. They weren't sure how much money they were going to have to allocate to that deal. Had a couple things lined up that never materialized. And so, just, like I said, I wanted to go in fully committed. I want to be able to go in on Labor Day and meet new teammates and get settled and prepare for a season like I had for the last 17 years. And I didn't have that opportunity. And I just felt like I'd be selling the team short and myself short if I wasn't, fully committed, fully prepared. And my game, my mindset when I approach the game just requires a 100% commitment. And I just didn't think I wasn't there mentally. So I just kind of just let those things go away.
Well, Pat Morris and Donnie Meehan are old friends of mine from way back. I've known them forever, and I've had some laughs with Pat in the past. Let's get to the Islanders and this year's Islanders, and one of the surprise teams of the league for sure. I know Vic and I did Summer Coolers, which is the previews of the teams. We didn't see this coming, I can tell you. And, they start off 0-3, and then they go on this 6-1-0 road trip. Third in the Metro, one behind New Jersey, two behind Carolina. My take on it, and see if you agree or you tell me the real take on it, is that Bo Horvat's having it's just an unbelievable start to his season. And Matthew Schaefer seems to have given the whole team an energy like I haven't seen for a long time, being a youthful energy that's been put into the team. And the loss of Noah Dobson and, even Brock Nelson, it isn't seen as much with this team as I thought it would be when I was thinking about it in the summer.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of those points. I think first and foremost, I think it's Matthew Schaefer. He trickles down the entire lineup. I think Emil Heineman has been very, very crucial to Bo Horvat's early success. His ability to skate, he's a very smart player, obviously. Creates a lot of opportunity for Bo. And I think Matthew Schaefer also does, a kid's playing almost half the game. And it's not very often you see him not be able to break a puck out. So when those guys are going one direction all the time, you see they get a lot more chances. I think that's what this team had lacked for a really long time. I think we lost Jordan Eberle and we lost Nick Leddy. And in my mind, Jordan Eberle did a lot of work for Matt Barzal, getting him pucks in positions where he could be in full stride and use his skill to the best of his ability. It also allowed Anders Lee to just get open and do his thing and not have to do more than that. So he could just hang around the net and have a couple 30, 40 goal years. So, all these things are all kind of intertwined. And I would agree that Matthew's energy level, his youthful exuberance has trickled through the entire organization. Not only the players, but I think the fans as well. I can, it's palpable on the concourse level at UBS where I do my pregame and postgame shows. A lot of people are just thrilled to have him, and rightfully so. And, I think it just shows you that the rest of the team, these guys, it's still a good fabric. I think this team has a lot of good forwards. They've had a lot of good forwards for a very long time. I just think that the ability for the team to break the puck out consistently has been plaguing them forever. I also think a shift in playing styles with Patrick Waugh having more of the types of personnel that he likes to use for more of an offensive sort of more offensively driven team. I think for years under Barry Trotz and Lane Lambert, and Lou Lamoriello, we were expected to play a certain way, and we played that way. But as the team started to improve from a talent offensive perspective, I think we kind of lagged behind a little bit. So, all those things put together, turn out to be what you're seeing on the ice. And for me, if they can go 6-1 on that road trip, I know there were some games where they squeaked some out, but just the resilience, if they can do that, then their potential is, for me, their potential is to be a good playoff team and, potentially win a couple playoff rounds. And if that's their ceiling, and if they play somewhere 20% below that, then they're probably a bubble playoff team, but they're heading the right direction.
I think the road trip, in my view too, showed that instead of finding ways to lose, they were finding ways to win.
Yeah.
And which says a lot about a team, in my view. Cal, can you explain their special teams? They were down near the bottom in both last year. Now this year, they're only down near the bottom in one, which is power play, but their penalty killing is a lot better. I think sits at 9th. And I haven't been able to explain it in the years that I've been going to all those Islander games. So I wonder if you can.
Well, your goaltender is your best penalty killer. And Ilya has been really good since about the first week in November. He had a couple tough starts to start the year, and the PK struggled at the same time. I also think that they're doing a really good job on the penalty kill with their forecheck in the neutral zone. They're denying the blue line at a rate which they haven't in years. That was always our bread and butter is to try and make it difficult for teams to enter. It seems to me that they're winning a lot of faceoffs to start power plays, and they're getting clears, which every clear accounts for about 25 seconds of kill time. So you clear the puck twice, you killed half the power play, which is 30 seconds or it's a full minute of top unit power play time, which is huge. I felt like when they struggled, they were spending 2 minutes in their end, losing the draw, and then kind of getting tired. And when you get tired as a penalty killer, you're sitting ducks.
Yeah.
And they're doing a really good job up the ice. They're getting in people's faces. They're not just kind of waiting at the red line backing up. They're doing a good job of gathering speed, coming back and standing at those blue lines, filling in for each other, recovering pucks. And they've been really good with their trigger moments. Backs turned, bobbled pucks, rims, all the things that, should ignite 4 guys on the ice to get into pressure mode. They do that. They pressure with 3 guys. They always have one guy kind of in the middle. They've used that guy to exit the zone quite a bit. And that's what good penalty kills do. So that stuff doesn't take talent. It just takes a little bit of work and a little bit of IQ. But once you get 4 guys on the ice who are on the same page doing that, it's successful. The power play, for a long time, I felt like the power play was kind of snake bit. I thought they were moving the puck around really well. I thought they were entering really, really well. I think maybe the last 4 outings, they've been a little bit less effective, creating less scoring chances, but the potential's there. And I just think that when they're moving the puck well and when Schaefer is able to walk the blue line, it just adds an element to a power play that they haven't had recently. And just his ability to get pucks through the net. A lot of the power play goals they've scored are point shots with tips and rebounds. I think they could go a little more into that, especially in the first 30 seconds of a power play. Just kind of, soften them up. Because the hardest thing as a penalty killer is when that thing gets shot on net, you have to react to where it's going. And then that's the split second. You should have guys in recovery positions. You got 2 flankers. They're there collecting anything in the corners. And so I think they need to shoot it a little more. And, but I still like their power play, the look of their power play. I just feel like they need to start finishing. I think I don't know what the stats are, but if you looked at their shooting percentage on the power play, it's probably not great.
Do they create enough traffic in front? Just the basic rudimentary part of this, that when you've got Schaefer walking the line, is there enough disruption in front of the net to throw teams off?
I think so. It really depends on what options you're trying to run through. So a lot of teams like to have the net front guy off to the side. Mm-hmm. And so, that becomes an issue of, it's Matthew Schaefer's job, or it's Barzie's job, or it's Drouin's job to figure out if there is net front presence before they shoot the puck. And so, I think Schaefer's done a pretty good job of that. You haven't seen him throw one at the net that just ends up in the breadbasket with no traffic yet. He doesn't give away possessions like that. But, if you're going to start funneling pucks to the net, you got to make sure that Anders or whoever's in front is going to be parked there ready to go. And then you can have your 2 flankers kind of crashing in for rebounds. But I think that right now is a last resort for them. And I think they need to kind of incorporate it just a little more, just to soften some penalty kills up.
You mentioned the goaltending a short while ago about Ilya Sorokin, but how important this year has been that David Rittich has been able to spell Sorokin in ways that 3 or 4 other goaltenders couldn't a year ago when Semyon Varlamov went down. And Sorokin wound up having to play 61 games, literally 3 out of every 4. And this year, the current pace, Sorokin would play 2 out of every 3. And that's a big difference. Rittich, 2.59 goals against, .905 save percentage, got his first shutout of the year. That shutout win against Seattle. And that's a really good signing that the Islanders made, Matthew Darche making that signing, that kind of came in under the radar.
Definitely. Ilya's always had the comfort of Semyon Varlamov, and they're close friends, obviously countrymen, speak the same language. When Ilya came in, he had no English skills at all. Varley was a big part of getting him settled, comfortable. And also just having a mentor like that, right? I mean, you're coming into a league that's new to you. You've had a lot of success in another league. You've got high expectations. Varley was really good for getting Ilya into his NHL career. Mm-hmm. And he was always a steady sort of plan B, so that, Ilya's, every goalie goes through spurts where they need a couple games to find it. They need a week to find it. And Varley was always there to play really well. And he gave the team confidence. But, David Rittich is the anti-Semyon Varlamov. Varley's very quiet. Ritty's not. He's one of the more talkative guys I've been around. And I think it just adds to the Schaefer type of energy where he gets into that net, he shows emotion, he plays the puck, he makes the saves he's supposed to. He's able to hold them in for periods. Like for first period in Utah, I did that game in Utah and they were getting shellacked. That could have been 4-0 in the first period. They come out of that period at 1-1. And he makes 6 amazing saves in that period. And then they settle into the game and they end up winning that game, obviously. Another one of Matthew Schaefer's record-breaking coming-out moments. And, that stems from Rittich being able to do that in the first period. And he's going to have nights where he's not great. He had a night in Carolina where the team wasn't good and they didn't give him much in the way of help. And he can only do what he can do. But he's doing a really good job of being emotionally invested in his starts when he gets them. And he's giving them the confidence to win, especially on second half back-to-backs. They're 4-0 in the second end, and he's usually the guy getting the tail end of those, and those aren't easy games. So he's passing with flying colors. And great signing by Matthew Darche, one of a couple. I mean, Jonathan Drouin's fit in really nicely with this team. I really like his game, watching him a lot more closely. I think he's a lot more of a 200-foot player than I ever gave him credit for in my own mind. And I think he competes pretty hard. And Emil Heineman, obviously we covered him already, but all of these pieces seem to be playing a role, which is what you want and what I'm sure what Matthew had in mind.
You've got a couple of injuries on the Islanders right now, guys that are friends of yours, obviously, because you played so recently. Yeah. JG Peugeot is week to week. And then there's the defenseman Romanov that got badly hurt with the hit from Rantanen and in Dallas. And I saw it on TV. I don't know if you were there or not, Cal, but I know you've seen it. I guess my question is, do you think that was he stumbled over Mayfield, or do you think that was just a real dirty play?
I have a hard time with this one because I think a player of that caliber has the ability to, he bumped into Scotty. If he was really off balance and really falling, he probably would have fell. I think. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that he was using Romy to kind of brace himself as he was going down? Yeah, sure. I got to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. Up until that point, I had never really seen him do anything dirty. I didn't think he was a dirty player. Obviously, he had like an embellishment penalty the next game, and then 2 games later, he goes and gets suspended for boarding in a play where he clearly wasn't tripped by anybody, and it was a bad hit. So I don't know. I mean, here's the thing about it is it doesn't really matter. The Islanders are without Romy for 6 months, and that hurts them. And whether Rantanen gets a game or 2 or 3, I don't think it has any bearing on the fact that Romy's hurt. Yeah. So my sense on the whole thing is that it doesn't really help me to have to make a judgment on whether it was intentional or not, because it's irrelevant to me. But at the same time, like I said, the negative in all this, the huge negative is it was a dangerous play, and you've got a guy hurt. Yeah. And he's hurt for a while, and he's a guy that, plays a big part in their decor. So they're going to have to figure out how to plug that hole long term, and that's unfortunate. And it could also hurt his career when you have something that severe, because we don't know how you come back from things like that. We hope come back 100%, but you never know. One of the things that Vic and I have talked about on the show a number of times, and I'd love to get your thoughts. We talked to Scott Stevens about it. We've talked to others about it. And that is the fact that on clean hits, like Jake Trouba, for example, this happened to him many times. He got the open ice hit in, and then he had to fight somebody after a clean hit. In the game in Dallas, when that happened to the defenseman Romanov, the Rantanen, everybody came in and there was a scuffle, but there was really no challenge to a fight. When he did it 2 games later, and Huberdeau right away went after him and tried to get him to fight him.
And I guess the thought here, and the thing that I really wanted your opinion on, because you are one of those guys that would jump in a moment. If you're on the ice, you're getting in there, you're not holding back. If your teammate gets hit illegally or hard or something, I don't think you jumped in with a legal hit. But we've been talking about the fact that if you make a good hit on somebody and then someone forces you to fight on a clean hit, should you really get a penalty for defending yourself? Because you had to fight the guy. You had he made you fight him. It seems to Vic and I that that it should only be the instigator who came in. If you've done nothing illegal, you shouldn't get penalized for defending yourself.
Yeah. I think it's probably a slippery slope, but I think that's the point of the instigator rule. Is to kind of penalize somebody for almost the whole period just for initiating something in a situation like that. I think a lot of times referees will waive the instigator penalty if it was a dirty hit to begin with. And if it was a dirty hit to begin with, there's already a penalty coming on the other side. So there's, you come out of that situation usually ahead anyway. I never liked the fact that a good clean hit, or even for me, it was just the volume of hits. Like if I hit somebody 3, 4, 5 times in the first period, it would be, especially earlier in my career, I would have somebody chase me around for a period. But I was, that's one thing that I made sure that I did is I didn't accept all of these challenges all the time, because I would have been fighting. And at the minute you fight one guy and this guy and the other guy on a regular basis, then you're expected to do it. So I just wanted to make sure that when I was fighting, it was either because I did something that I thought was, something that I would have been upset about as a teammate if it had been reversed. And I didn't do that that often. I never got suspended. Really, I don't think I had any major penalties in the last 10, 12 years of my career. So I was aware of the fact that, if I did something dirty, I would have to respond. And I just wanted to make sure that when I did fight, I was fighting for my teammates or I was fighting for myself, for reasons that I felt strongly about. Because again, it's a 100% commitment thing. Like if you're not committed to fighting and you don't want to do it, you're going to get hurt. So.
But in a situation like what happened in Calgary on Saturday, where Rantanen runs Matt Coronado and Jonathan Huberdeau steps in, and everybody could see that it's a boarding penalty, that there's an injury, that it's going to be a game misconduct. Should a player such as Huberdeau in that spot get a game misconduct, and the instigator for defending his teammate on what was a dirty hit that was penalized with a major penalty and a game misconduct and ended up as a suspension, although it was because it was the second game misconduct within a 41-game span?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that side of it, I happen to agree. I think there are some referees who will, like I said, they will not assess the extra 2 and 10 in that situation, because it's clearly a justified action within the unwritten rules of the game, which we all know. The difficulty in that, I think, is it just then becomes a matter of opinion, whether or not the hit warrants no penalty or penalty. That's where it gets a little gray for me. And then you've got something else to argue about in a game where there's plenty to argue about already. So I don't think it would work out that way. The concept I totally get, but I just don't know if it would work.
Cal, last thing from me, and it's something that I'm very much intrigued in. My wife is in mental health, and so there's a lot of things that we discuss. And one of the things that I'm very intrigued about is transitioning in one's career from especially athletics, especially pro sports, but it doesn't have to be a player. It could be a manager. It could be a coach. It could be any number of things. But it's easier to talk about a player. And you go from this sort of robotic lifestyle that you have when you play, that you do everything over and over again, over and over and over until the summer comes, and then you get a little bit of a relief for a while. But then it, when the calendar turns to September, here we go again, over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden it ends. And now you're supposed to just act like the rest of us act. Why don't you just do what we do? And it's really hard. And I just wondered how it's been for you. And is this something that you've, encountered in your transition from on ice to life now with 4 kids, a wife, TV, gig going? It's not easy.
No, it's not. The best thing I did was like I said, I got into TV right away. Was because, and I was doing it at my own pace, which was nice. I got to pick my schedule. It was month over month. I could do more. I could do less. I could be home if I needed. But there's definitely, I think it's inevitable. Everyone has that moment. I think for me, it was probably around this time last year, maybe Christmas time, where, getting up in the morning with nowhere to be, stopped feeling like a luxury and started feeling like a burden a little bit. So, you have to sort to proactively start to do things that are going to occupy the, centers of your brain that have been firing for, basically your whole life. I mean, since probably since you get drafted to the OHL. My rookie year in the OHL at like 2002 or 2003 is probably the last, was when that life started for me, the robotic sort of regular mindset. And for me, it's the sense of purpose that comes with being an athlete and feeling like you're going out there and doing something important. And, when you stop doing it, it's nice to have a break from having to show up and do things that are important. But that only lasts a certain amount of time. I think that period of time is different for everybody. But for me, it was a couple months. And I've found things to occupy myself. Luckily, I have somebody that I talk to. So we talk through those things. A sports sort of mindset psychologist that I used a little bit when I was playing, and then when I would get into tough spots, and I used them transitioning for the last 6 months into my new life, because I wanted to make sure, first of all, that I was making the right decision when I did stop playing. I wanted to make sure that I was going to be okay with it. Didn't necessarily trust my day-to-day feelings on that, so I needed to talk through it. And then, what's next? And his advice to me was just, you got to start doing something now. Because whatever the thing is that you're going to do afterwards, you're not going to be as good at it as you were playing. That's just the way that it is, right? So you have to kind of go into this internship mindset where you're just going to try things, and you're just going to try and discover who you are as a person. Because a lot of times you're a hockey player in your mind, and that's first and foremost. And a lot of times it just takes a little while to figure out who you actually are and what your interests are outside of the game. So I was lucky because I had somebody kind of coaching me through that process. And I was able to take his advice and try things and land it on TV. And now I feel like I have a full-blown second career going here. And I still have other projects on the side because TV is so good for allowing me to have my days to myself so I can pursue other things that are of interest. And so just seemed to be the perfect fit. And it's really allowed me to have a focus and try and show up and do something and improve on something and try and climb the ladder. But it's also something that I know very well. So it wasn't a total restart. It's been a good fit.
You can certainly tell that in terms of TV, you're very coachable because of your performance thus far and giving your opinions as a studio analyst. But I was in production for 40 years, worked with a lot of great talent, a lot of great producers, a lot of great production teams. So for you, as you made this transition into television, what has been the most eye-opening aspect about being a part of a TV sports production team?
Well, I think how many talented people are behind a program to me is the most eye-opening part. I think everybody knows that there are people in the truck doing something in order to put the game on TV. But really, when you're going through the process of trying to figure out, you're trying to build a pregame show, you're trying to go through an intermission segment, and we've got Steve Napolitani, our producer, and Joel Mandelbaum, our director. They're constantly doing things, as behind the scenes, and they're giving you feedback. They're letting you know when to go, what we're going to talk about, what clips they were able to pull together. They're going to show it to you. They've got 5 or 6 talent people to worry about at the same time. So to me, their ability to orchestrate that show on the go and plan it, and then, get the right shots and put the right packages together and have it ready for you so that all you have to do is talk about the game. That's been the greatest thing. And Shannon Hogan does a great job hosting the show. I really have been impressed with that position also in particular, because there are things, as everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Like, these things kind of go awry sometimes. You run out of time, you get added time. She's really good at thinking on her feet. She's really good at having her energy up and making sure that everyone's engaged. And she does a great job of teeing me up so that I can just, easily ease into a segment or an opinion. And so the whole team there is really strong. Those and they're great people. So it's been a lot of fun working with them.
And you've worked with Thomas Hickey as well. And a lot of times the natural organic move would be to do games at some point.
I did a game in Jersey this year already, actually. Brendan and I did that. So that was awesome. I definitely have interest in doing games eventually. I think that's the most natural spot for an analyst. I've done some games between the benches, and I really like that because you're close to the action. So you have a little different perspective on the pulse and the emotion of the game. You can see things like coaches having conversations with players, emotions. Yeah. You get a better sense for what the feeling of the game is at ice level, but it's more difficult on TV because you can't make eye contact with the people that you're trying to call the game with. So you have to try and figure out where your moments are to actually jump in and to make it so that it doesn't really sound manufactured or forced in there. And so, that's been really good for me because it's helped with my ability to pay attention to timing and recognize moments. And so it's been really good. And then when you go up to the booth, you don't have that problem. It's just you and Brendan, and you can let it fly. If something comes to your mind, you see something, you say it. Between the benches is a little more of a fill the gaps kind of game.
Neil, he's got this.
I know. I've been watching. Cal, this is great. Thanks for coming on and doing this and spending some of your day with us. And we just wish you very happy Thanksgiving, you and your family and your 4 little guys and your wife, and American Thanksgiving, I should say.
Yeah. Well, it's our Thanksgiving now. We've been here for too long. We're going to be celebrating. So happy Thanksgiving to you guys and your families as well. And thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
No, it is a lot of fun. We hope you'll come back at some point, maybe when the Islanders make the playoffs this year, and we can talk about that.
Yep. Sounds good.
All the best, Cal. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Neil, when we spoke to Stephen Gostkowski on our celebrity series, one of the most revealing parts of that discussion was the transition from being a professional athlete to the more what we call normal life. And as much as I loved the conversation about the Islanders and where they're going and his insight, his transition is somewhat different from Gostkowski's. And it just goes to show you that every player that leaves the sport and they return to being normal, so to speak, in terms of their day-to-day living, everybody's DNA is different.
It is, and everybody has to find a way to fill their time. That was so overwhelmingly taken up by the trying to maintain this absolute perfection in their sport. And when I say perfection in whatever role they had, you don't play in the major leagues without perfection, because for Cal Clutterbuck, a tremendous third line player, grinding, hitting guy who had to come into the game with a mental state exactly right on to be able to perform that role night after night after night. And for 17 years, he did it. And then now all of a sudden has to fill his time in. He's not getting up and going to practice. He's not packing bags every 2 or 3 times a week to go on to a road game. And so he had to find other ways to fill it. And as he said, luckily for him, he got this opportunity on TV, took it slowly. And now I think he does a pretty good job.
And he wants it. That's the biggest thing. He's serious about it. He wants to do well at it, and he wants to diversify by doing both studio and games. So all the best to him going forward.
For sure. He's a good guy. I learned a lot from him.
Last week, Neil and I did a segment on the 8 Eastern Conference teams that missed the playoffs in 24-25. Went through each of them, looking at what would have to happen for them to make the playoffs this year or why they would be out again. We're going to do this with the Western Conference teams right now. Anaheim, Calgary, Chicago, Nashville, San Jose, Seattle, Utah, and Vancouver all missed a year ago. So we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into the why or why not they will either get in or not get in, and the things that need to happen in either scenario. I think a couple of teams are obvious right off the bat, but we're going to start off with Anaheim. What has to happen for them to get in, or why won't they get in when we get to April?
The Anaheim Ducks are going to make the playoffs this year, and the reason they're going to make the playoffs is because Pat Verbeek is going to win GM of the Year when that award comes around, because of the job that he's done and the acquisitions that he's made in a very short period of time. He's made a ton of moves. Most important move he did, he brought in Joel Quenneville to be the coach. He's his old teammate from the Hartford Whalers. Back in the old days, he knew Joel well, interviewed him about the problems that Joel and the organization faced in Chicago and the reason why he was suspended from the league for a time being, and he ended up hiring him. The other moves that he made, bringing in Chris Kreider. Chris Kreider's been great for them so far this season. Jacob Trouba, brought in from the Rangers, played really well for them this season. He made the various other trades, which changed his lineup around and has made this lineup good enough to make the playoffs. Obviously, right now they're doing really well, but they're going to stay in a playoff position the rest of the season, I believe, and they are going to be in the playoffs this year. But now let's move on to somebody from Canada, the Calgary Flames.
I think their fate is already sealed for this season. Last year did a lot of overachieving, and I think took a lot of people by surprise. Ryan Huska did a terrific job behind the bench. But as we've said several times during the course of this season and going back to our summer coolers, they didn't do anything to augment that lineup. And it's coming back to bite them this year. I do believe that you're going to see several pieces perhaps moved before the trade deadline. Rasmus Andersson, their top defenseman, unrestricted free agent. Nazem Kadri has some term. He's also got a Stanley Cup and a guy that I think a lot of teams would want to have in their postseason lineup. So this is a club that I can't say why they and what would have to happen for them to get in, because there's just too much of a mountain to climb, and to ask them to replicate what they did a season ago, taking everybody by surprise with the lineup that they had, it's just not realistic. I throw back to you, the Chicago Blackhawks.
Well, Chicago Blackhawks are going to be improved this season. They are improved this season. And one of the smartest things they did was bring in Jeff Blashill, the former coach of the Detroit Red Wings, who spent several seasons under John Cooper with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Jeff got there, and from the outside, it looked like an insurmountable deficit that he had with that team based upon the last couple of years. But seems to have brought out the best in a lot of their players, and including the maturation process of Connor Bedard, who is playing a lot better this season at both ends of the ice than he has in the past. And we've seen his game come up. We've seen still some immaturity. He's still just a young kid, but he's playing a lot better. The Nazar signing looks actually not bad now when it looked terrible in the summer because we didn't know this kid well enough, but he's playing really well for them. I don't think Chicago Blackhawks are going to make the playoffs. I don't think they should want to from a management standpoint, from an organizational standpoint. I think they should want to get another good pick to add to what they've already got. But I don't think that they're going to be improved enough to make the playoffs this season. But there is a lot of improvement and a lot of reason for hope for the Chicago Blackhawk fans. I want to ask you, sir, about another team that we talked about earlier in the show, Mr. Trotz and his Nashville Predators.
Haven't we beaten them up enough already in the show?
I think so. So you would say they're going to make the playoffs then?
No, what I'm going to say is the only thing that they have a chance of winning are the most ping pong balls for the lottery come the draft in late June. Back to you, San Jose.
San Jose will not make the playoffs this year, but again, just like Chicago, I think they're going to be a much improved team. They're all of a sudden going to have gone from this rebuilding skeleton of a NHL team to now you see some meat on the bone. And Macklin Celebrini is going to be the leader of that movement and the upward trajectory that they're making. They're much improved, and they're going to continue to be much improved with the young base that they got. So I don't think they're ready to make it this year, but they're no longer the laughing stock of the league either. Let's go on to the team without an S at the end of their nickname, the Seattle Kraken.
I believe that the Kraken would make the playoffs if they can continue their strong defensive play. And they are right near the top of the NHL. Team goes against average. Real admirable job done by Joey Decord, Philip Grubauer in net. And I'll fall on the sword for this one, at least for the time being, that I said I did not believe that their goaltending was going to be good enough. To this point, it certainly has been. But I also think that despite a real good job that Lane Lambert is doing, and you remember that Cal talked earlier about the defensive system that the Islanders were playing or tried to play under Lambert, but it kind of restricted some of their offense. And I see some of those similar things in Seattle, where their team leading scorer doesn't even have 20 points yet on the season. I think there's only 3 teams that fall into that category. The others being the St. Louis Blues and the Nashville Predators. So I think based on defense, they could make it, but it would be very tight. But I think it's really the lack of offense on this club that would keep them out. The Utah Mammoth, and I'm looking forward to the potential of going out there and doing a live show. What do you think? Is it happening?
Well, we just had Bill Armstrong on the show just a little while ago. You learned a lot about the team and a lot about their coach, Tourné, and his the way he coaches. I think their goaltending is pretty good now. With Vejmelka has proven himself to be a starter. They've got a young group. What I like about Utah is they've got a young group that's all coming together at the same time. In other words, they're all maturing at the same time. And I do think that they're going to make a wild card spot this season. So they've turned their home ice disadvantage to an advantage this year. And I think that Utah is ready to make that move to get into the playoffs, and perhaps it'll be the 8th spot in the West. But I do think they're going to be in. So let's go to the last team.
Whoa, I got to stop you first. So first class airfare, 5-star hotel, limo picking us up, and a red carpet to welcome us into the Delta Center to do the show.
Well, if we can get all that, I want to know what kind of drugs you're smoking. Let's move over to Canada, to British Columbia, to the team that came in with the Buffalo Sabres in 1970 and are still looking for their first Stanley Cup. None other than the Vancouver Canucks. What are their chances of making it this year?
I don't love it. I think that the club is working hard under head coach Adam Foote in his rookie season, but they're not going to have enough offensively, and I don't think they're going to have enough defensively. Their goaltending has gone through injuries or other mishaps during the course of the season. Thatcher Demko is going to make the trip coming up. It's a 4-game road trip to the 3 California clubs and Colorado. When he plays is anybody's guess. Kevin Lankinen is away from the team now for personal reasons. So they're going to start this trip with Jiri Patera and Nikita Tolopilo as their two goaltenders with 11 combined games of NHL experience. So I think that in and of itself kind of encapsulates that there's not really enough depth on this team to make the playoffs. I think, as I said, they work hard. They're getting their wins. This season obviously is not as disappointing as it was a year ago, but I just don't see it for this club.
And 2 years ago, they ended in first place. I think we all forget that. They ended in first place and were eliminated by Edmonton. We thought they really had a bright future. And then all of a sudden, Rick Tocchet decides he's not going to stay with them. He wants to leave. And then JT Miller and Elias Pettersson had their squabble, which led to JT Miller being traded to New York. And then Quinn Hughes went through a number of injuries. And boy, it just completely became unraveled in Vancouver, didn't it?
Sure did. So I enjoy doing that, though.
Yeah, that's fun.
You have a personnel / maybe injury update as we start this part of our show.
Well, I have a couple of things I can tell you. If you're a Pittsburgh fan, that Brian Rust is on the ice for practice. If you're an Islander fan, Casey Zizekas is on the ice for practice this morning.
From my end, we have Brady Tkachuk, captain of the Ottawa Senators, expected to return Friday against the St. Louis Blues. He will miss his 20th straight game Wednesday when the Sens visit Vegas. Ottawa has been 10-5-4 since Tkachuk underwent surgery for a torn ligament in his thumb. They are third in the Atlantic, but as you had said, you're going to be a little bit wary upon his return because sometimes the club that had a lot of concentration and battling through this, and now that the captain is back, sometimes there's a tendency to let off the gas a little bit, thinking everything is just going to get better automatically.
Well, and the other thing is that there's people that aren't real happy when a big wheel, a big cog returns to the wheel. Because the place that they had been playing in the lineup is now changed because you got to fit this important guy back into the lineup again. And that's going to be, in this case, Brady Tkachuk, their captain. Of course, they're all happy to have Brady back, but the guy that has to miss the power play now or miss his shift on a line and go back a line, they're not going to be too happy. And you're going to have to find that right combination all over again. So we'll see what happens here. Maybe it's just that he gets in the lineup and everything goes completely smoothly.
I'm quite certain Travis Green would be more than happy to have to deal with that problem of moving parts around. A couple of other notes here. Brendan Smith signs a 1-year, 2-way contract with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He'd been playing with the Cleveland Monsters of the AHL, and that was a name that you had brought up earlier in our discussion with Cal Clutterbuck. And on another front, remember I had seen Milan Lucic about a week ago playing in Hartford for Springfield on a PTO, and that PTO has now been terminated by the Blues. He has been released, 1 assist, -7 in 5 games. He gave it what he could. It's like I said when I saw him a week ago, it's just not there.
Well, two points on those two players. Brendan Smith, first of all, this is his 6th team that he will have played for, and he's going to play tonight for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So that's a little bit of breaking news. He's going to be in the lineup for them on his 6th NHL team. Had a really good career, been a good soldier for every team he's played for. Started with the Red Wings and then was traded at a deadline to the New York Rangers and went on from there. It's funny about Milan Lucic. I was at the Blues game the other night when they played the Islanders, and the expectation of some of the guys that worked around the locker room was that Lucic actually was going to get called up to the team, that he had just worked on his game in Springfield. And I said, well, I don't know, because my buddy was at the game the other night watching him play the Hartford Wolfpack, and he didn't look too great. So now we know that, I guess, the Doug Armstrong and the powers that be agreed with you.
They should be calling me too often for advice, though. One final note. Carter Hart is expected to be recalled by the Vegas Golden Knights next week. He is eligible to play starting December 1st. And as you know, it's been Akira Schmid and Carl Lindbaum in goal for Vegas. And you would question this, whether or not this guy can return close to the form that he was when he left a couple of years ago. And just now, the potential backlash that could come when Vegas goes into visiting rinks around the NHL with Hart returning.
No doubt about it. There is going to be a backlash from some people because that's the way society is right now. It's that they voice their opinion if you have somebody there that they don't feel that should be given that opportunity. But Carter Hart has played 2 games for the Henderson Silver Knights. He's got a 2.55 goals against average. He's won 1, he's lost 1, and he's got a .875 save percentage in the American Hockey League. So that's the little bit of an update on his performance so far. Not
great numbers, not overwhelming by any stretch.
But you wonder, though, Vic, how does this guy go from sitting out these years? I mean, he wasn't a superstar when he left the NHL. He was Philadelphia's best hope for a starting goaltender of
Correct.
note. But he wasn't burning it up. And we'll see how he does when he comes up. It doesn't always mean, because your numbers weren't that great in the American League, that
right,
you can't play, because you don't know who he was surrounded with on that Henderson team. But those are his numbers. The numbers are the numbers.
And I think that's a good place to step off and end the show. So special thanks to New York Islanders TV analyst Cal Clutterbuck for joining us today.
He was terrific on the show today and brought a lot of great insights, not only as an analyst, but also as a very recent player and the transition going out of playing. I want to thank our listeners, our viewers, for watching us, for listening to us. I hope you keep doing it. I hope you ask people to subscribe. We've got to get our numbers up so that we can get sponsorship and we can keep on going. You can reach us individually if you want to. Neil at NHLWraparound.com or Vic at NHLWraparound.com. Every show that we've done, every piece of material that we've done is on our website, NHLWraparound.com. And of course, we are on all platforms: Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and of course, the aforementioned YouTube. So subscribe and please get others to listen. Give us a chance and maybe subscribe.
Only a handful away from 700 subscribers. And as Neil mentioned, our website is NHLWraparound.com. And in our blog section, we have the latest New York-centric, written by Patrick Hoffman, Neil's Nuggets. Very interesting piece. If you're not in the playoffs today, what are the chances that you're going to be there in mid-April? And Smith's picks, your first perfect night of the season, albeit it was 1-0, picking Dallas over Edmonton. Your record for the season there, Paco, 123, 69-27.
Yeah, I mean, that's in the NHL world. Oh boy, I got to do this math quickly, but that's about 54 games over 500.
I think you're right. Great math. This will be our last show for this week. We're going to take Thanksgiving off, and also because there's a very heavy schedule of 15 games on Friday, and most of them take place during the afternoon. So we're going to take Friday off. Short Shifts comes next Monday. Our next wraparound will be Wednesday, December 3rd. And I just want to go back to the Short Shifts on Monday before we say goodbye. 45 games in total will be played between Wednesday and Sunday. That's 3.4% of the entire league schedule. So we were talking earlier in the show about the condensed schedule. Here it is. Can't get any more condensed than that.
No. Enjoy the hockey, and if you want, you can do it. You can binge watch it.
Happy Thanksgiving, my friend.
You too.
And same to all our listeners. Take care and travel safe.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.